This is way worse than anyone thought, as today was the biggest day of the Toronto Raptors season, really, as this had major impacts, a big turning point moment on the franchise, and whether or not we could get one of those top picks in this year's NBA draft for a team that's young, youthful, developing, wanting talent to be built around Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley. Getting this draft pick as soon as possible was really important for the future of this organization. Now, if you didn't tune into our live stream, live reacting to this sort of draft lottery odds, or if you've just been off social media for the past, 2 hours or so, the Raptors did not keep their draft pick for this upcoming season. Because if you're not familiar, the Raptors, if it fell out of the top 6, it would go down to San Antonio Spurs because of a trade we made with the San Antonio Spurs for Jakob Poeltl a couple seasons ago. So the Raptors, they lost their draft pick for this upcoming draft. And we knew this was a possibility. In fact, it was probable. It was a 55% chance that it ended up happening. And especially when you're dealing with the Spurs, because the lottery luck always finds the way to bless the San Antonio Spurs. We knew it was just unfortunate, even though I was trying to speak into existence. I had the shrine going of Adam Silver. I think I still have. I won't pull it back up. But of Adam Silver, praying to the basketball gods. We couldn't make it happen. But overall, this entire draft scenario is just way worse than any of us could have thought, any of us could have predicted, because not only did we lose our pick, and basically, confirmed if you want to see the details on it, fell to 8th overall, meaning it went to San Antonio. So right now, the Raptors are stuck with picks 19 and 31 in this year's NBA draft. And again, Masai Ujiri with late first round picks, he has a good track record. Masai Ujiri does have a history of cooking with these types of picks, but in terms of how this lottery odds could have went, and now I'm a little bit more calm than I was in the live stream. A lot of yelling, a lot of emotional, raw reactions sort of happened, during that live stream, which it's definitely a fun watch. Definitely watch that back after this one if you want to see that. But basically, things couldn't really have gone worse for this year's whole entire draft scenario, because again, we lost that draft pick, as we all know. The Spurs stole it there at this point. But with the Raptors at the 19th pick overall, this is something that could have really been avoided. And the Raptors had their hand to play to sort of fix this situation, because that pick as number 19 right now from the Indiana Pacers should be number 15. Because if you look at the overall standings odds in terms of what happened, this was dialed in before the NBA lottery, but the Pacers, the Sixers, the Lakers, and the Magic all had the same seeding, all had the same records to close off this year. So how the tiebreaker worked, it's very arbitrary, it's very annoying. But the Pacers ended up having the highest pick out of all these teams. So if the Pacers lost one extra game this season, they lost one extra game this year, Toronto Raptors, that 19th pick would be 15 or 16, 15 or 16. So it would fall down 4 different slots, and the Raptors will have a much better selection there. Again, 4 picks, pretty significant, even though it's still a mid to first rounder, right? That's just unfortunate. But why is this sort of effect? Why am I getting fired up about this? Because the Raptors purposely sat Emmanuel Quickley in a game, close off this year to potentially chase the San Antonio Spurs. I don't know what we're doing. The tank did not work to close off this season, but we benched a 23-year-old point guard that needs reps, that needs opportunities to get comfortable as the lead point guard man against a team where we had control of their draft pick. And if we won that game, that pick would have fell down a couple more selections. So, that's pretty bad too. Losing our first round pick this season, and then, having a hand in personally, making decisions beside Jerry Bobby Webster, Darko Rajakovic, whoever decides on that stuff, having a hand in helping the Indiana Pacers have that pick go up, move up in the sort of standings, that's just extremely annoying. It's bothersome. It's just way worse there. And frankly, this also is something that factored in. I calmed in. I did some reflecting. I did some analysis on this draft, because I honestly was in a little bit of a, I don't want to say shell shock, but just a demoralized state following the news the Raptors lost their pick. But if you didn't catch it, a team won the number 1 overall pick in this year's draft. And frankly, even though I'm not, if it went to some teams I dislike, I would have been more fired up or whatever. But in terms of Toronto Raptors rivalries, in terms of positioning in the NBA standings, our goals for next season, the number 1 pick couldn't have gone to a worse team. It couldn't have gone to a worse team for the Toronto Raptors. That's right, PSP man himself, Landry Fields, the GM of the Atlanta Hawks was out there. The Hawks ended up getting the first overall pick in this year's NBA draft. And the Atlanta Hawks are a team that are very much in a similar spot to the Toronto Raptors. And now they are getting a golden young prospect at the top of this year's draft, whether it's Sarr, whether it's that French guy. they're adding a really nice piece to that core of Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, Hunter, Jalen Johnson, all of these types of dudes. And just are more a step ahead now with the Toronto Raptors and the young core deadline, or whatever you want to call it. The future ascension of teams in the middle of the pack of the Eastern Conference. One team just randomly jumped ahead of us. The Atlanta Hawks, they were able to sort of skyrocket in this year's lottery odds, which makes it tougher in the Eastern Conference, but tougher with a team that we're going to be competing with if we want to be competitive for future seasons. They got the number 1 overall pick. Now they're going to be incentivized to sort of make the right moves, build around this sort of Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, whether they trade one of those dudes, but they are just way more well off with this number 1 overall pick rather than, 11th, 12th, 13th overall pick. And all these squads in the Eastern Conference, the East is becoming more and more loaded by the season. It felt like the Raptors could have been in position to sort of overtake the Hawks, the Bulls, in upcoming years with some development from Scotty Barnes, some development from IQ, from Quickly, from Grady Dick, from these types of guys. But now it's going to be a whole lot harder when the Atlanta Hawks are not bringing in an average prospect. They're bringing in, a number 1 overall caliber player. But again, I don't have much hate for the Atlanta Hawks, so I'm not that fired up about it. But still, makes this draft night, makes this NBA draft lottery night look way worse for the Toronto Raptors. And fans of the team are making some good memes. I saw this one out there I think I pulled it from Reddit, but Bobby Webster actually gave Wemby more hope than he gave Scotty when you think about it. I mean, he's not wrong. The Spurs have absolutely finessed us. Anytime Bobby Webster, Masai Ujiri, there's a phone call made from San Antonio, anything from the San Antonio area code, right? I don't know if San Antonio, Texas, just stay away from Texas altogether. Hang up that number unless someone's trying to trade you Luka Doncic. But that's that. I found that one funny. And man, we are in desperate need of our in-house guys, and I think we might be saved by the Emmanuel Quickly, RJ Barrett trade because we got those prospects for an OG Anunoby who was expiring anyways. We're just going to need some serious development from the guys that we have in-house and some good scouting in the second half of this year's draft because frankly, I still have faith in Masai Ujiri. Some people were going at me, a lot of people were agreeing, but a lot of people were going at me for being critical of some of the moves made by Masai Ujiri in the past, but I still have full faith in this guy. But frankly, things couldn't have gone worse for the Toronto Raptors with their sort of setting things up in terms of draft capital selections and stuff. That's not to say they're not able to get a stud, in the late first round of this year's draft or early second round with one of those picks, but it's still a very messy situation for the squad. If you want that sort of raw reaction, definitely recommend you check out that sort of live stream that's happening there. But this Raptors team, man, a lot of smart moves are going to have to be made this offseason. It's not going to change overnight unless we get some crazy development from our guys that are already in-house. But, the East got tougher with the Atlanta Hawks getting number 1 overall pick, right? The Raptors, their draft pick, from the Pacers ended up falling. We didn't keep our draft pick for this year. The saving grace, the light at the end of the tunnel, the absolute copium is the Toronto Raptors are going to keep their pick in what's supposed to be a better draft next season. I don't know. We'll see how we are. We'll see how we're sort of set up in that situation. Too far to look ahead for that, but I don't know. Rough go for the Toronto Raptors. You guys best think this far. Subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. I'm signing out. Cheers.